sun comes up on America, across open fields, small towns, and city streets, a new day begins. And here, we rise with it. This is where hard work meets headlines, where truth matters, and America wakes up informed.
An interesting week.
They all are.
This is your country. This is your morning. This is Daybreak with Steve and Ivy Gruber. America, let's do it together.
Love you, Ivy.
Love you too.
And it starts right now.
All right, here we go in another big day of the program, fighting for you from the foxhole of freedom, making sure you have the right people with you when it matters the most. Let's get rolling. Here are three big things for this hour. Number one, disgraced former FBI Director James Comey has been indicted again by the Justice Department, but this time for posts he made on social media indicating he supported the idea that President Trump should be taken out. Number two, the Virginia Supreme Court has handed a victory to those fighting the referendum last week that would redraw congressional districts in favor of Democrats. The state's high court denied certifying the election again, and the drama continues. And number three, President Trump just dropped one of the most beautiful troll moves we've seen in quite some time. I'd like to tell you more about it. A patron on social media said we should rename ICE to NICE, the National Immigration and Customs Enforcement. So every time the fake news media wants to smear the men and women actually enforcing our laws, they're forced to say NICE agents over and over and over. And Trump's response, great idea, do it. While Democrats scream that border enforcement is mean, Trump reminds them these are the good guys protecting American families, raising wages, and lowering housing costs. NICE agents. And here's a highlight reel that support that title, put out by the Department of Homeland Security, who's leaning into it as well. Listen.
They're starting to say, ICE, you're nice guys. We really appreciate it.
All right, on a more important note, they're proving why they're so necessary right now. They might be nice to law-abiding folks, but they're not soft on crime. ICE Houston just announced the arrest of 277 illegal migrants in just 2 weeks, including 17 child predators, 6 murderers, and 16 drug traffickers. These are hardcore criminals, folks, with long rap sheets a mile. And just last week, the Houston City Council voted to change the city's policy to allow increased cooperation between that city's police department and ICE. Even in deep blue cities, the tide is turning. Americans are demanding safety again. While ICE is finally rounding up the worst offenders, let's never forget what Biden's DHS gave us. Take Atharva Vyas. Atharva Vyas, an illegal alien here on a student visa. He gets arrested for felony assault. Biden's DHS reviews it and says, yeah, not bad enough. So they protect him. They don't kick him out. Fast forward. This animal jumps out of the woods, beats a 27-year-old mother, and bites her 3-year-old daughter's face so badly, the little girl loses teeth. A DHS official under Trump made it clear this barbaric assault was completely preventable. That's what weak enforcement and open borders deliver. American toddlers having their faces bitten off. Biden's legacy in one horrifying story after another. Thank God that we now have adults in charge. The DOJ's Board of Immigration Appeals just ruled that DACA status alone doesn't automatically terminate deportation proceedings. A 3-judge panel sided with DHS, making it far easier to remove these DACA illegal aliens who never should have been here or shielded in the first place. This era of automatic protection looks like it's finally over. Of course, the radical left is completely melting down. Billionaire Tom Steyer, who's running for governor in California, is running around calling ICE a criminal organization. Here he is.
I'm very straightforward about this. ICE should be abolished. You really can't reform an organization which is absolutely wrong and criminal from top to bottom.
Yeah. Political grandstanding is hypocritical, too. I mean, considering that billionaire Steyer is capable of hiring an armed team of bodyguards to follow him around 24/7, not to mention the fact that his hedge fund has made millions off investing in private immigration detention entities. Think about that. He makes money when people stay here or come here illegally. A lot of it. Meanwhile, California Congressman Ro Khanna is whining that students are living in fear of ICE and demanding we tear the whole agency down while platforming brainwashed teenagers as voices of reason. You can't make this stuff up. Here's more.
I believe it has a basic moral litmus test that you've got to call for tearing down ICE and starting again in a new agency. If you're not willing to do that, you're not really seeing the pain, the hurt, the fear of immigrant communities and the kids of immigrants.
ICE and Homeland Security was made to target national threats, terrorists. It was made after 9/11, and it has branched off of that by wanting to do raids, mass deportations, and because of that, they've mainly deflected from actually going after people who are threats.
I don't see any limits being really put on what ICE agents can and can't do.
You're absolutely right. I mean, they're acting with total impunity. I mean, they are acting like they can commit violence with no consequence. And that's a very scary thing when you have a state which has violence that can be used against any individual, immigrant or citizen.
How disgusting. Ro Khanna doing his level best to divide this country and feed these students all these lies, nobody intervening and telling the truth. That makes them scared, angry, and ready to revolt. Well done, Congressman. Well, Ro, meet angel dad Joe Abraham. His beautiful daughter, Katie, was killed by an illegal alien, drunk, driving 80 miles an hour in this country illegally, thanks to the exact policies you were just defending. Joe responded on Twitter and said, quote, I promise you, Ro Khanna, my daughter was scared when she was forced to take her last breath. I was not there to hold her as she slipped away. Katie got the grave. Katie's family got a life sentence in grief while her killer got another chance. That's the end of the quote. That's not politics. That's raw truth from a grieving father. Yet you still got Oregon State Senator KZ Jama, who came here from Somalia, declaring this. Listen.
Let me say to this federal agencies and ICE, this is Oregon. We do not need you. You're not welcome. And you need to get the hell out of our community.
Wow. The arrogance is breathtaking. A former born politician telling American law enforcement to get the hell out of America? Americans deserve better leadership. And I've got more. Don't miss House candidate Alice Stanford, who's campaigning to abolish ICE entirely, but doesn't actually know who should be enforcing immigration. Listen to this real quick.
You also said you're running to abolish ICE. Mm-hmm. This is something that we've heard other Democrats and activists talk about.
Yeah.
From an immigration enforcement perspective,
yes.
Who do you think should be in charge of enforcing immigration laws?
It's a good question. And you could pause because I just want to think about it for a minute. Go ahead.
We need to continue, though.
Okay.
Yeah, no answer. No answer was well, who should do that? Well, that's a good question. Yeah, it's a damn good question. When 3-year-olds are getting their faces bitten off and young women are being killed by drunk drivers who shouldn't be here in the first place, yeah, those are good questions. I'll have more in a moment. Look, these people have no plan for enforcement. They just hate it. Somehow they think that they're the ones who should be presiding over it. These people that came here from Somalia, they should be in charge of American law enforcement. And I say absolutely not. Over in San Antonio, the Party for Socialism and Liberation, yeah, there is such a thing, PSL, busted nearly 100 senior citizens, elderly Americans, on fixed incomes, paid them, of course, to protest a new ICE processing facility. Yeah, it's unbelievable. Socialists using your grandparents as human shields to chant ICE and raids. We say no. Deportations have got to go. Yeah, and other such garbage, while waving signs about Palestine and tearing down borders. It's disgusting. They're waving other countries' flags. This is a clear choice in front of us, America. On one side, President Trump, nice agents, rounding up child predators and killers. The DOJ clearing roadblocks and cities finally cooperating with federal law enforcement. On the other side, Democrats, socialists, billionaire activists, and open borders radicals who call ICE criminal, protect face-biting monsters, bus seniors to protest detention centers, and then admit out loud they want permanent cheap labor. Yes, they do. Senator Ron Johnson says the Republicans need to take control and stop letting these America Last politicians destroy our country. Here's my friend from Wisconsin.
You think this is a moment in time that you actually could remove the filibuster to get funding done, because we are in the middle of a war after all?
Well, you know, we did not have the votes when Democrats were being so obnoxiously obstructionist on just nominations. We didn't have the votes to basically nuke the filibuster on all nominees. But in the end, Democrats were so obnoxious, we had all 53 Republican senators go, yeah, no, we need to start, confirming nominees with just 50 votes. This may be a moment like that. Okay, I mean, again, it's a legitimate point of view, wanting to maintain the filibuster to, if we're in the minority, to block awful socialist, leftist legislation. But the Senate's already broken enough. We've pretty well eviscerated the filibuster anyway. From my standpoint, rip the Band-Aid off. The Democrats will do it. The Democrats will do it when they get the majority. At a moment of national danger, if Democrats refuse to fund DHS, I would say this would be the time to nuke the filibuster for good.
Yeah. The problem is there are some Republicans, because I agree with him, but there are some Republicans in our government who aren't taking a stand, who don't see how dire this situation really is. Case in point, Florida Congresswoman Maria Salazar is pushing her Dignidad amnesty bill and will openly boast that it will provide cheap labor for every business sector, not just agriculture, construction, but healthcare, hospitality, manufacturing, you name it, she wants cheap labor. She says Americans want affordable vegetables and fruits. Translation: we're supposed to flood the country with low-wage workers so big business gets cheap tomatoes while American wages stay suppressed and our kids compete with foreign labor. That's not compassion. That's corporate welfare dressed up as humanitarianism. Americans voted for Trump because they want secure borders and rising wages for citizens, for American citizens first. They need Republicans who support that agenda, not ones who extended amnesty for immigrants who need to pursue the proper channels to stay here. Representative Mullins is drawing attention to that as well. Here it is.
Carlo Jimenez, Nicole Maliotakis, what is going on?
Unfortunately, TPS turns into a permanent status.
No,
we have people that's been here for 30 years, and then when we say we're going to end a protected status for you, they end up coming in and saying, well, wait a second, it's inhumane because we're married, we have family, we have kids here, we have grandkids here, we work here, and now we're going to send you back home. But it was never supposed to be permanent. And that's the problem is that when you start extending these programs, they become permanent. And I have a real hard, I have a hard issue with TPS to begin with because we don't ever end it. We always extend it. We have asylum laws here, and if you need asylum and you can prove that you have asylum, we're pretty generous in that.
Very small percentage.
But it is a very small percentage, but that's what I'm saying. If you can prove it, which is the president has tightened that up. And President Trump, we have tightened the asylum language up.
It's been brilliant.
Secretary Mullins is exactly right. The American people are done being lied to. They're done watching their children pay the ultimate price for elite virtue signaling. They voted for secure borders. I did. Rising wages and the rule of law. And that's exactly what's being delivered. To every angel mom and angel dad still fighting for justice, we see you and we hear you. To the radicals screaming abolish ICE and get the hell out, too bad. This is our country. We're enforcing our laws. We're putting Americans first again. And if you don't like that, the exit's right over there. We're just getting started. Nice agents are back on the job, and America is becoming great again. This segment is proudly sponsored by PuroClean's Veterans Initiative, PuroVet. It's where veterans find purpose. This is a great program. Fits nicely, doesn't it? This is where veterans find purpose in property restoration and entrepreneurship. We salute those who served at PuroVet. It's real easy. If you're a veteran or if you know somebody who is and you want to be in the restoration business, this is your chance. Call 855-PuroVet or go to purovet.com, purovet.com. A couple of other headlines really important from yesterday. The Virginia Supreme Court denied the Attorney General's motion in that state to certify results of the redistricting referendum that's now been out there for more than a week. It's not been certified, which means the courts are suspect of the whole thing. That's good news, by the way, as Florida goes to work on creating 4 new congressional districts that will favor Republicans. This is good news. It's big news. The Supreme Court of Virginia denying the motion from Attorney General Jay Jones to allow last week's redistricting referendum to be certified. A Tazewell County Circuit Court judge ruled last week the referendum and results were unconstitutional and said the vote could not be certified. Jones asked the court to put a stay on that ruling and allow the certification to proceed. The court said, no, we're not doing that. That's good news, my friends. The battle for control of this country is happening at every level, locally, statewide, and federally. We need the Save America Act. We need John Thune to get a spine implanted as soon as possible. John Thune is failing us right now. Get rid of the filibuster. Pass the Save America Act. Fund those nice agents, if you would, please. We'd really appreciate it. It's what was voted for in this country by 77 million people. Nice to see you this morning. Remember, you can always send me an email. Boy, you're doing a nice job with that, by the way. A lot of great emails. SteveGruber.com. Send me an email. What's on your mind out there, wherever you may live? Tell me where you are and what's important, all right? SteveGruber.com. Back after this. All right, well, as you heard me say at the beginning of the program, James Comey has been indicted again, and I want you to weigh in on this because it doesn't sound like the strongest case, but he has been indicted for, you saw the picture that he put out on social media. He had put shells on the beach to write 8647. 8647, all right? He's been indicted for a second time by the Justice Department. The Instagram photo of 8647 on the beach getting him indicted. And there is an arrest warrant that goes with it saying that he threatened the President of the United States. My concern with this, pretty clearly, is it seems weak. It seems weak. And we don't need weak indictments. Having said that, however, since Pam Bondi left, it seems that there is an urgency at the DOJ to get some of this done, to hold people accountable. I don't know if this is the right case. I don't know if posting on Instagram rises to the level of I'm threatening the president. You let me know, because I'm curious. Does James Comey need to be held accountable? And John Brennan and James Clapper and all of those people that work to undermine this government and the elected leadership? Yes. Not sure this is the case. You go to stevegruber.com, you send me an email, you tell me. I'd like to hear from you. If you deal with knee pain, joint pain, or stiffness, especially when you're driving or sitting for long stretches, listen to this. You can't take a medical treatment bed with you on the road, but you can keep the QE red light therapy wand right in your glove box. It's a handheld device using red and infrared light combined with proprietary quantum energy technology to target pain right where it hurts. No pills, no appointments, just simple targeted relief you can use anytime. I love how portable it is. It's easy to use, and you just need it for minutes a day. How do you find it? You go to QEstrong.com. QEstrong.com. Use the promo code Gruber, and you'll get the QE wand for under $100. I don't know how you beat that. QEstrong.com. Red light therapy, right in the palm of your hand. It can go anywhere. QEstrong.com. The promo code is Gruber. Nice to see you today. I'll take a break. I'll be back with a lot more after this. All right, back to it now. The question I have for you is, at this point in the conversation, Roundup, would you still use it? You've heard all about it. The question to you simply is yes or no. Would you use Roundup? Do you believe it's dangerous after all you've heard? lawsuits flying, but can they go anywhere? That's the question before the Trump administration. Sarah Starman is the senior food and agriculture campaigner at Friends of the Earth. Sarah, welcome to the program.
Hi, Steve. Thanks for having me.
Nice to have you here. People versus poison. It was a protest outside the Supreme Court. Tell us what is at issue here and why you are standing up to be heard.
Absolutely. So on Monday, the court heard oral arguments in the case Monsanto Company versus Durnell. And what's potentially at stake is what's called a liability shield for pesticide companies. So Bayer Monsanto has been sued by over 165,000 people, alleging that repeated exposure to Roundup weed killer led to cancer and other health harms. And in response to that, they are now seeking what's called a liability shield, which would protect them from future lawsuits. They have been pushing that in state legislatures, in federal bills, including appropriations on the Farm Bill, and they are pushing that in the Supreme Court. And hundreds of people gathered outside to protest against that and the fact that chemical companies like Bayer Monsanto are raking in billions of dollars, selling products that are linked to health harms like cancer, infertility, and other health harms. And to say that it's enough. We've had it. We believe there should be a pathway to accountability and justice, and these companies should be held liable in court when people suffer health harms due to their products.
All right, so this is not a Trump administration question per se, and what I mean by that is the Environmental Protection Agency ruled that Roundup is approved, safe, I suppose. This goes back how many years?
So Roundup has been approved for use since the 1970s. It is a long-time weed killer. It's actually glyphosate, which is the main active ingredient, is the single most widely used pesticide in the history of the world. And the EPA does not require a cancer warning label on Roundup weed killer products. However, one thing that's very important to know is that the EPA almost never requires a cancer warning label. In fact, a recent analysis found that only 1.4% of pesticide products with an active ingredient that the EPA has deemed a likely or probable carcinogen are required to have a cancer warning label. So that means over 90% of products that have a probable or likely carcinogen, according to the EPA's own analysis, do not require a cancer warning label. And I think many of us feel that is not an adequate warning to consumers.
Well, here's the thing. Has it been, and this is a serious question. I know a lot of people have questions about Roundup. It's been around, like you said, for decades, used all over the planet for decades. But so have a lot of chemicals and compounds and so forth. And sometimes we find that those compounds are dangerous, like PFAS and PFOAs and things of that nature. On the other hand, you have companies like Morel that was bankrupted because of breast implants, and it was found later that those breast implants had no real impact on health. But the company was already bankrupted by lawsuits. So how do you balance that? How do you balance the fact that there are chemicals out there and there are a lot of lawyers are willing to take the cases. That I understand. But doesn't always prove to be true. What happens if a company gets destroyed because they're sued into oblivion, but the product was never really the culprit? Then what?
I think that's up for juries to decide. And the main point at stake here is that no one should be above the law. No one should be above accountability, whether you're an individual citizen, but especially if you're a multi-billion-dollar company that sells chemical products. And to your point, many chemical products have turned out to be dangerous to our health, including products containing PFAS forever chemicals, products containing glyphosate, paraquat, and other pesticides. The science catches up and finds out that these chemicals have long-lasting health repercussions, including cancer, infertility, developmental disabilities, particularly for pregnant women and developing children. These chemicals can have lifelong impacts. And so there has to be a pathway to accountability and justice. And I think it's up for juries to decide.
But
and
juries decided, hold on now, juries decided the fate of Morel, destroyed the company. Juries decided that. They were wrong. It happens sometimes. And I don't disagree with you. The companies need to be held accountable if they know their product is somehow dangerous to the general public. But juries destroyed that company, which is an easy case to look up, and a big company it was as well, bankrupted. So there has to be balance, doesn't there?
I think there does have to be balance. I think in the case of Bayer Monsanto, one of the troubling aspects is that there is evidence that the science has been covered up. and that over the years, Bayer Monsanto has worked to actually suppress science showing that glyphosate is linked to cancer, including internal studies that were never released, and other industry-funded studies that found no links to cancer that have since been retracted, including some recently. And in this case, it seems like this is an important company to hold liable and for people to continue to be able to take to account in the courts.
Should there be caps on the awards that are given? Because sometimes these juries hand out awards that are $100 million or more. Should there be a cap on liability when you have a case like this? Because how many plaintiffs did you say there were?
There have been over 165,000 people who have sued Bayer Monsanto after using Roundup repeatedly and developing non-Hodgkin's lymphoma or other forms of cancer and long-term impacts.
So clearly that would bankrupt that company that has, employees and a long-term relationship. A lot of people don't like Monsanto. I understand that. But not liking them doesn't make them a target for destruction necessarily. So should there be caps on these awards that can be given out? Would that be something that would be, that way you had a path to accountability without destroying the entire company? Would that be acceptable?
Potentially. I think more saliently, the thing that these cases rest on is that there's no cancer warning label. It's not that they manufacture and sell the product, it's that they haven't been willing to put a label on it that says, you may develop cancer from this product, and you should wear protective gear. You shouldn't be exposed if you're pregnant. You should be careful if you're using this product around children. These entire cases rest on a clause called failure to warn. And I think that more saliently, a lot of this could be solved if Bayer Monsanto was willing to put that label on these products and give people adequate warning about the health risks, or alternatively, invest part of their portfolio, a larger part of their portfolio, into safer chemicals and safer chemistries, and the transition away from these somewhat antiquated chemicals that have decades of science linking them to health harms.
So I'll just leave it here. If there were warning labels on this product and maybe 1,000 others, would that be acceptable, and would that mitigate damages to a company? I mean, obviously, Monsanto's not going to come out now and put a warning label on their product because that would just open the floodgates to more lawsuits. Would that be enough for you? Because obviously the EPA has approved this product since the 1970s. Doesn't mean the EPA is right. They're often wrong as well, and I can appreciate that. But warning labels, would that be enough? Last word to you.
I think warning labels would be a great start. I do think, given that glyphosate in particular is the most widely used chemical in the history of the world and is now found in the bodies of 80% of adults, 87% of children, it's in the rain, it's in drinking water, cereal, pasta, bread. That amount of daily exposure is troubling, and so warning labels are a good start, especially as it relates to legal liability, but only a start. We really need to do more to transition away from this widespread chemical use and contamination.
Sarah, good conversation. Glad you were here. Appreciate you stopping in. Thank you. There you have it. Sarah Starman, what do you guys think? I'll take your emails on this one for sure, because as I'm watching in the chat sessions this morning, some people still use it, some people don't. Some people like organic, some people don't care. What about you? Where do you live? Roundup, yes or no? That's the question here today. Yes or no? I'll be right back. Well, some big news from this week, and in case you missed it, I want to share this with you because I think it's really important. A former senior advisor to Dr. Anthony Fauci was indicted on federal charges alleging he conspired to hide his communications related to COVID-19. And his name is Dr. David Morenz, accused of using his private email account to intentionally circumvent public records laws while employed at the National Institutes of Health. How significant is this? Obviously, Anthony Fauci, not trusted by, well, hardly anybody anymore, to be honest with you. And so I want somebody who really knows to weigh in. Dr. Peter McCullough, the Chief Scientific Officer at the Wellness Company, is with me this morning. Doctor, nice to see you. How important is this indictment of Dr. David Morenz? He's a close colleague of Anthony Fauci. Obviously, this is a big headline. Your thoughts?
It's an inflection point, Steve. Morenz was a direct report to Fauci. Under oath, he indicated that he, did many things to cover up the truth on the source of the virus coming out of the Wuhan lab. He was developing ways to circumvent FOIA requests as people tried to learn what was going on. The question I have, Steve, is he the fall guy for Fauci? Because Fauci has, a 10-year pardon, or is this going to be one in a sequence of indictments?
Do you think Anthony Fauci is getting away with it here?
I do. And I think at this point in time, there should be some official work to, in a sense, nullify these preemptive pardons. And he should be as responsible as anybody else was during the pandemic when they're a government employee.
Fair enough. All right. And something else I would like your opinion on before we get to some other stuff here. There was a song in the 1970s that said something about taking a trip and never leaving the farm. And Donald Trump last week said, all right, psychedelics, let's look at them because they can help people with PTSD and other issues. Psychedelics, magic mushrooms and such. What do you think of that?
Well, there are 3 drugs that have matured. Now, they're interesting. They're given as an inpatient. You can't take them at home. So you take 1 dose and then about a month later take another dose. They do alter reality, but they could have a role in severe treatment resistant depression, as well as PTSD. We have a lot of U.S. veterans with severe PTSD. And so what Trump is saying is, listen, let's give it a shot. He put a limited amount of money for research behind this, and they may play a limited role. Many were excited about this, including Joe Rogan and Robert F. Kennedy. And so I think it's a limited advance, but worth a try.
I think it's worth a try as well. Look, if we can help these people and break that log jam in their minds, it's a good step to take. I would agree with you on that. So you're a yes.
I am, but there are some safety warnings. Again, this is never going to be used at home. I want people to understand this is not going to be something you pick up at the pharmacy. It's going to be inpatient treatment.
All right, fair enough. All right, and something else. Over the last few weeks, we've been talking about the stunning results of a wellness company study on the use of ivermectin and mebendazole in treating cancer. This could be a real breakthrough. Your thoughts?
There are 20 million people with cancer. People are doing what the doctors ask them to do: surgery, chemotherapy, radiation. But what we found is people were selecting the use of combined ivermectin and mebendazole from a wellness company. We kept track of usage and found that 84% of patients, had some form of benefit. The cancer, stayed in remission or was neutralized. In fact, some patients, the cancer regressed. We did a search. We couldn't find a single cancer center out there using the 2 drugs in combination. And so we've urged the National Cancer Institute and Dr. Jay Bhattacharya at the NIH to initiate large-scale randomized trials of this very affordable generic medication combination in adjunctively used with other medications, Steve, to treat cancer. Many patients are not waiting. They're going to the wellness company, and they certainly can access it and be a part of the program.
Look, I'm not a doctor. I don't even play one on TV, to be fair. But here's what I figured out. These parasites in your body and cancer cells conduct themselves in a similar way when they collect energy from the body. Is that correct?
That's an interesting way to frame it. What's been found for both of these drugs through separate mechanisms, they do reduce proliferation as they would with the parasite. They reduce the blood flow that the tumor is trying to develop. And finally, they accelerate apoptosis. That is the packaging up and termination of cancer cells. There's plenty of preclinical studies with ivermectin, preclinical and clinical with mebendazole. But when you use drugs in combination, don't forget most chemotherapy is combination. That's when patients get a big benefit, and that's what we found at the Wellness Company.
This would be a huge step forward in the fight against cancer. First of all, ivermectin and mebendazole are cheap compared to cancer treatments that are more traditional, right? They're cheap. So Big Pharma's not going to love this. But if it's going to save lives, we need to do this. What's the next step?
Next step is a large prospective, double-blind, randomized, placebo-controlled trials. We tested it in prostate cancer, breast, and lung cancer across a broad range of solid organ cancers. Is well tolerated. 25% of patients had some side effects, so it's a real-world study. But you're right. This is a generic. These are available, and cancer centers generally feature expensive chemotherapy because they do book and bill. They actually get a percentage of the receipts on chemotherapy billing.
What about ivermectin and mebendazole prophylactically, taking it to prevent the disease from ever occurring? Is that possible?
I haven't seen any data suggest that, and I think not. At a wellness company, we have a product called Shield, which features natural botanicals that I think have a much better chance over the long haul of preventing cancer.
But for people that have the disease, it's worth exploring. Doctor, really appreciate you being here, always on topic. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
By the way, you can get ivermectin and mebendazole American-made from the wellness company. If it's something you're interested in, and after these studies, how could you not be interested? twc.health/Gruber. You can get ivermectin American-made and mebendazole in combination, and maybe you can find out for yourself. Look, this is a big breakthrough study. I think it's incredibly important. As a cancer survivor, that was not available to me back when I went through it a long time ago. But for you, modern medicine, repurposing, making a difference, it's important. Again, twc.health/Gruber. Find out more right now, and you get a break on the pricing as well. Go ahead and look at that. Dr. Peter McCullough, what an asset, what a resource. I'll be right back. We're going to dig into the James Comey story coming up in the next hour, so you don't want to miss that, because I want you to weigh in as to what you think about that. He's been indicted, has an arrest warrant out there for him for spelling out 8647 with seashells on a beach and then posting it on Instagram. I'll be honest, it seems like a weak situation to me. Doesn't seem like the strongest way to hold people accountable, but that's where we are, and I'd like your thoughts on it. You can post it in the chat on YouTube or Getter or wherever you might be watching on streaming, and there's a chat available. You can go ahead and do that. We'll keep an eye on that. We'll talk about that more with Ivy coming up in the next hour. Dead people voting meets a measure of demise in the state of North Carolina. If you didn't hear this, 34,000 people that are deceased were removed during a routine exam of the voter rolls in North Carolina. 34,000, that's the kind of number that can change the outcome of elections, especially if some of those are concentrated in different areas. North Carolina, obviously an important swing state. A state that is more red than blue, but still a state that sometimes is right on the edge. And we'll find that out more in November during the Senate race in that state and see how it plays out. But 34,000 people using the Federal Systematic Alien Verification and Entitlements Database. That's called the SAVE database, by the way, for those of you keeping score at home, as in Save America. The SAVE database submitted nearly 7.4 million records on April 17th, and quite quickly they found 34,000 deceased individuals. Now, other states are fighting this. Other states are fighting to keep dead people on the voter rolls. States like the one that I live in, Michigan, another critical swing state. This is important stuff, folks. We have to save our elections. We have to make sure that the people voting are eligible to vote, are American citizens, and are actually alive. That'd be a nice box to check. Let me see. Voter here is alive or dead? Well, they're dead. Well, should we keep them on there, Bob? Come on. This is easy stuff, and yet the Democrats fight at every step of the way to keep dead people on voter rolls. Why? You have to ask yourself, and I think you know the answer. Is it about fairness and honesty in elections? Obviously not. All right, I got that off my chest. Like I said, Ivy, Jim Comey, that story coming up in the next hour. Nice to see you on Daybreak.
America's awake, and we're just getting started. The headlines that matter, the stories they won't tell you, and the voices fighting to be heard. This is your country, your morning, your daybreak with Steve and Ivy Gruber. A new hour starts right now on Real America's Voice.
All right, let's do it. Welcome back to you. Fighting for you from the Foxhole of Freedom, digging deeper and giving you better analysis and insight than anyone else. Here are three big things you need to know this hour. Number one, the markets continue to perform very well despite the high cost of oil lately. In fact, consumer confidence far higher than expected again. So what are your feelings on the economy right now? We'll get to that. Number two, Democrats are doing exactly what I told you they would, and you fully expected, attacking Donald Trump and blaming him for being the target of an assassination attempt a third time in less than 2 years. And number three, spoke about this last hour. The second indictment of James Comey, this time by a grand jury in North Carolina, has been handed down, and this time it comes with an arrest warrant. So stand by. A mugshot is forthcoming, and the DOJ seems to be warming up ever since Pam Bondi was shown the door a few weeks ago. Maybe the time for holding people accountable is here, but my question, is this really the right one to begin with? Comey was indicted for putting pictures on social media of shells in the sand of a beach arranged to write out 8647. Get rid of President Trump. But is that really a threat against the president, or is it free speech? Listen to this.
So I think it's fair to say that threatening the life of anybody is dangerous and potentially a crime. Threatening the life of the President of the United States will never be tolerated by the Department of Justice. Over the past year, this department has charged dozens of cases involving threats against all sorts of individuals. We take these seriously, every single one of them. For example, just today in the Northern District of Florida, there was a guilty plea from an individual who threatened multiple political leaders, including President Trump. In the Eastern District of North Carolina, where this case was indicted earlier today, there are multiple threats cases very similar to this one, including one where the defendant pled guilty recently to threatening former President Biden.
All right. I got it. Todd Blanche, acting attorney general. I got all that. They charge people for threatening the president. Did he threaten the president? Ivy's joining me now. Ivy, I got to be honest, I'm a little marginal on this one. It's a picture. It's on Instagram. Does it rise to the level? Is this the case they should be going after?
Well, good morning, Steve. You know, I actually did some research here. And under U.S. law, specifically Title 18, Section 874, says it is illegal to knowingly and willfully make threats against the president as well as the vice president and others that are in line of succession. So what counts as threats? Saying or writing that you intend to harm or kill the president, posting threats online, social media accounts, communicating threats through letters, messages, or even indirectly. The threat does not necessarily have to be carried out, but just making it can be enough. But is it a true threat is the question. And that's what they have to look at, is whether or not, you know, the question is, and I think this is where you have a little bit of concern, which is it a true threat? Was James Comey actually going to, you know, act out these things? But my question is, because of these sorts of posts made by James Comey and others, even our governor here in the state of Michigan had an 86 in a couple of her interviews.
That's right.
And so we knew that the Democrats were starting to do this, is that a lot of people started posting, 86 Trump. And we all know that means to get rid of him.
Right, but does it mean to kill him? And that's really, Gretchen Whitmer had the 8647
correct.
thing over her shoulder in a number of interviews, and so did a lot of other folks. And so my question then becomes, do you round everybody up to put 8647 online somewhere on social media? That seems a bit absurd.
What my question is this to you, Steve. If their rhetoric, what they say, then encourages others to get violent and try to harm others or trying to harm the president.
Like we saw Saturday.
Does that rise then? Do they have culpability?
Here's my thing. Look, we know that people, former members of the Obama administration, a whole host of folks, John Brennan, James Clapper, James Comey,
Right.
did a lot of things that I think were probably a lot more egregious than posting this picture online. So I've got some real questions about, look.
Well, I think I can understand the president's sentiment that he's sick of it. You know, he's sitting there with his wife. He's sitting there with members of the media. He's sitting there with Caroline Leavitt, you know, women in his life who are very important to him. And what, you know, he's thinking, I need to not only protect myself, but all of my family members, my, you know, all of the, I think he really truly cares about the American people and doesn't want to see any type of political harm come to others. I think he's just sick of it.
I think you're right.
And whether or not that rises to an actual crime, in the case of James Comey, it's to be discussed in a court. That's why they're, you know, bringing it to a court. But, you know, free speech is powerful, but there's a little fine line, right? When you're taking it too far. And especially because he had great responsibility. I mean, he was the head of the FBI and he's out there making these sorts of comments. To me, that does not show leadership at all.
Well, that part's true. I agree with that. I mean, and I go through that whole list of usual suspects that undermined Donald Trump, lied about Donald Trump, created the whole Russian hoax, all of those things. But as you know, Ivy, you've known me for a long time, I'm a free speech absolutist. I don't have to like it. You know what? And you don't have to like what I have to say.
Sure.
But I have every right to say it. Now, having said that, going back to the comment you just made, I think is exactly right. There is an area, you can say whatever you want, but that doesn't mean there aren't consequences for what you say or post or do.
Exactly. And so I think here, is it a credible expression of violence? And did it become criminal because of what he put there, you know, in the sand? And I guess there is a case, Watts versus United States, and the Supreme Court ruled that political hyperbole did not qualify as a true threat. This case is often used to distinguish protected speech from criminal threats. So that'll be used to weigh whether or not, you know, Comey did in fact, you know, was it a real threat? And I don't know if you knew this, but did you know that Kathy Griffin was actually investigated by the Secret Service? Remember that picture she had up with the president's head, and it had been clearly severed from his body. But there were many
I find
others.
that more grotesque by far than what Comey did. I agree with that. One interesting twist on this, though, it's not coming from a grand jury in Washington. It's coming from a grand jury in the state of North Carolina. And I think that's interesting because that's not going to be a sympathetic group to the left. It's going to be a group that's going to be more straightforward. So we'll see how they came in. But it was a grand jury indictment. It was not, you know, just somebody. It was not Todd Blanche going out and getting the indictment on his own. He got it from a grand jury, so they looked at the evidence. They made a decision. But I agree with you on Kathy Griffin. She had the severed head of the president. It was disgusting. And I don't know if that rises, I'll be honest, I don't know if that rises to the level of true threat either.
Right. Well, she didn't have any criminal charges filed.
Right.
I mean, she had a tremendous amount of public backlash.
Sure, which she should. You should be held accountable for being a disgusting person.
Absolutely.
But is it criminal? I guess we have to wait and find out. Good conversation, Ivy, as we start off the second hour here of the program. You'll be back a little bit later. Thank you. Love you.
Thank you. Love you too, Steve.
All right, I ask you again, what do you think? You can post it in the chat sessions. You can find those on YouTube, where you should be a subscriber anyway. It's free. Getter has a great chat going on right now, as they do every single day as well. So all good stuff. And what do you think? You can also send me an email, stevegruber.com. What do you think? Comey, does this rise to the level of being indicted and arrested? If I post on something on social media, I don't know. I'll be right back. All right, welcome back to it as we jump into the conversations that matter most to you every single day. We greatly appreciate it. Joining me is Hans von Spakovsky, Senior Legal Fellow at the Edwin Meese III Institute for the Rule of Law and Advancing American Freedom. Hans, nice to see you today.
Well, thanks for having me.
So I read this story, and I got to be honest, I chuckled a little bit because the clown circus continues. The U.S. Commission on Civil Rights. There was an executive order sent over, and they actually said, well, is this real? Did Donald Trump actually sign this? This is not Joe Biden in the White House. This is Donald Trump. Pretty sure that if there's a signature on it, it's real. But tell the folks about this.
The U.S. Commission on Civil Rights has 8 members. Right now, it's 4 Republicans, 4 Democrats. The president gets to appoint which of those commissioners will be the chair, the vice chair, and the staff director of the commission. Now, he says who he wants it to be, then they're supposed to have a vote, the concurrence of the commissioners. But the current chair, who was appointed by Joe Biden, Commissioner Garza, you remember she ran for office in Texas and lost. She's a crazy DEI open borders woman, and she has refused to hold a hearing where they can have a vote on her being delisted as the chair and the new chair that the president wants appointed. And finally, last Friday, they keep saying, well, we haven't gotten notice from the White House. Well, last Friday, one of the Republican commissioners handed them the certificate signed by the president making these appointments. And they said, well, how do we know this is real? This could be a forgery. And they recessed the meeting so they could supposedly examine the document, and they never came back in order to avoid a quorum so they wouldn't vote on it. Basically, for a year, this woman has continued to be the chair and has refused to step down.
So, all right, what is the recourse then? I mean, and obviously there has to be some recourse in this blockade. What do they do?
Well, under the statute, the president has the ability to fire a commissioner for malfeasance or neglect of duty. And I think this fits well within the statute. Additionally, for example, Congress sent over a request to the commission a while ago to investigate anti-Semitism on college campuses. It went to her, and she hid that request from Congress. She didn't give it to the rest of the commissioners, and so they didn't do it. That also, I think, fits well within the statute, and frankly, I think the president ought to fire her.
Boy, will they howl then. They'll be screaming like smashed cats, Hans, all over Washington. It'll be quite something to see that happen. Their heads will explode right there in the commission. But, all right, what does the U.S. Commission on Civil Rights actually do if it's functioning as it's supposed to?
Well, it was put together in the 1960s when we actually had all kinds of civil rights issues. And what it does is supposed to study and investigate problems in the civil rights area and then issue reports. So it doesn't actually have any executive authority, but it's the reports they put out have a lot of influence on what Congress and others do. So it is important that we actually have good people in charge of it and not, frankly, political partisans like the current Democratic members of the commission.
Yeah. So here we are. The president should take action, but Willie, I mean, look, any given day, I mean, I can't even imagine the number of fires that have to be put out in any administration any given day, things you have to tend to. When does this rise to the level of, hey, we need to fix this?
Well, I know with a war going on in the Middle East, trying to prevent nuclear weapons from being developed by Iran and the many other problems, this is, I'm sure, on the bottom of the list of the president's day-to-day activities. But on the other hand, this has been going on for a year with this woman and the other Democratic commissioners refusing to follow the law. I mean, that's the key thing. They're refusing to abide by the law, and I think the president ought to spend 10 minutes giving serious consideration to terminating the chairman as a commissioner in in her entirety. She should not be on the commission.
But you know what will happen within about 10 seconds of that? There'll be a lawsuit, and some activist judge will block the president from doing what he has the legal authority and the right to do. It'll happen almost instantly. I'm not wrong about that, am I?
No, but keep in mind that we have cases before, two cases before the U.S. Supreme Court. They've already been argued, in which he fired the commissioners of other federal agencies, including the FTC. And I actually think he's going to win those cases. And if he does, that will basically throw out and strike out any lawsuit that Commissioner Garza files.
Fair enough. All right, I got 1 minute left here, and I want you to weigh in on one other thing. That's the Virginia Supreme Court, again denying that state's Attorney General's motion to certify the results of that redistricting in the state last week, I guess. What are your thoughts on that?
Look, if the Virginia Supreme Court actually enforces the state constitution, they will find that this referendum that we just had on redistricting was invalid, because the Constitution says any kind of referendum has to be voted on twice by the General Assembly before it's put on the ballot for the people to vote. And they didn't have an interim general election in between. It says you have to have a general election in between. Well, when they passed it, early voting had already started. So there was no general election in between them passing it twice. There are other problems with it, but like I said, if
all right, so in Virginia or not, yes or no?
It should not.
It should not, but will it? Will not. Anyhow, Hans, always a good conversation. We don't know what these judges are going to do ever. Right. Great having you here, as always, my friend. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Greatly appreciated. I think it doesn't survive because it should not, and it's pretty crystal clear. But will it? We'll find out. I'll take a break and be right back. All right, I want to do a little follow-up here. Boy, was this a big topic yesterday when we talked about what I call the God switch, the ability for the government to reach down from on high with their satellites and shut your car off. Ford Motor Company has now filed a number of patents to take care of this so they can do this exact thing, put an array of cameras inside your vehicle, and then the AI will determine if there's something wrong with you. Have you been drinking? Do you have some stress going on, not feeling well? It won't turn the car on, or it'll turn the car off as you're driving down the road. Here's a little follow-up on that from Congressman Chip Roy. He doesn't like it a bit, neither do I. Listen.
Again, the kill switch. And I understand people are like, oh, that's okay, because it'll check eyes so people are drinking and driving. I mean, I get it. But do you really want to put that kind of data collection mandated inside every car? Like at what point is there just literally no privacy at all, anywhere? Again.
Yeah. When is there no privacy at all, anywhere? Good question. Man, I slept great last night. I can tell when I sleep better. You might be able to tell as well. And I used to think a mattress was just furniture until I got Ghost Bed into my house. What a great piece of equipment. This is not just some bed. It is a sleeping system, and it works like magic. It's made in America, by the way. These are American-built sleep systems, and the beds are serious equipment. Look, I need to recover at night. I do a lot of work here every day, as you can imagine. I'm on the air like 5 hours a day. It takes a lot to pull that off, right? And so I don't need a bed that's cute or snuggly. I need a bed that does its job so I can heal. That's what you're supposed to do at night. You're supposed to heal and recover. I noticed the difference right away when we started using the Ghost Bed a few weeks ago. Look, if you're waking up stiff or you're not right or your neck hurts or you're taking pain pills before you go to bed, it's probably a problem with your bed. Look, I know you don't buy a bed every day, but if you need one, Ghost Bed is the place to start. It really is. And here's something else. You can use this bed for 101 nights and try it. If you don't feel the difference, you can send it back risk-free. And Ghost Bed right now is offering my audience, you, the lowest prices of the season plus an extra 10% off. So if you want to find out more about what helps me sleep and do this program every day, go to ghostbed.com/Gruber. When you use the promo code Gruber, you're going to get the best price of the year. Ghostbed.com/Gruber. Promo code is Gruber. I believe in this product. I don't tell you about products I don't believe in. There it is, ghostbed.com. I'll take a break and be right back. All right, we have a special segment for you today. If you are struggling with thinning hair and hair loss, you'll want to pay close attention because I think you'll find this helpful. I have a special guest joining me, Miss Laura Volpe. Miss Volpe is a hair loss expert and trichologist, and she's going to share a simple, natural way women can get more volume for those who struggle with fine, limp hair. The product will promote thicker and fuller hair appearance. Laura, thank you for joining me.
Yes, thank you for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
Now, I understand you have partnered with a company called Purance who specializes in natural hair care. What can you tell me about him?
Absolutely. I partnered with Purons for two very simple reasons. One is that they only use natural and organic ingredients that are backed by science and proven to work. It's really important to understand that in today's day and age, the consumer is becoming more aware of ingredients. So I love the fact that there are no harsh chemicals like you find in most skincare and hair care products. So we're talking about ingredients like parabens, silicones, sulfates. So this makes Purons a really great option for women with mature and sensitive skin and who want cleaner ingredients in their products. Second, I love that they have a 3-phase hair growth support system, which I absolutely love because it simplifies how we can achieve that plump, fuller looking hair in a more intentional way.
So tell me about this product recommendation, why it's so groundbreaking for women who struggle. Because look, women, they hate it. Their hair thins out, they hate it. Why is this so different? What's the recommendation here?
Absolutely. So Purons has an amazing shampoo called the Hydra Lift shampoo. And what makes this shampoo truly unique is that they have that 3-phase hair growth support system I just mentioned. This is so important because inside my hair loss clinic, I see lots of women that I can help them get support with their hair growth protocol, but nothing is designed to plump the hair the way and give them volume, right? When they have finer hair, we need to give them volume the way that the Purons Hydra Lift shampoo does. So let me break this down and tell you how it works. The first phase is the root revival system. This phase dissolves that buildup in and around the follicles. This waxy buildup can actually suffocate the hair follicles and actually stunt the hair growth. The ingredient that makes this work so incredibly well is cocoa glucoside, and this will allow your follicles to breathe again. The second phase is the hair thickening matrix, and this phase uses an ingredient called hydrolyzed wheat protein. And what this does is it attaches to the weak miniaturized hairs and it strengthens it, giving it like a molecular scaffold that will make it stronger. This is how we get that lift and that plump and our volume in our hair over time. And then the third phase is the protective essence shield. And this phase is all about protecting your hair from environmental stressors. Purons uses natural ingredients that will form an invisible shield around your follicles. And this will keep out those harsh chemicals and locks in the nourishing nutrients.
That sounds great. So is Hydra Lift, this shampoo, is it easy to use?
Oh, that's a great question. You are going to use it like any other shampoo. You're going to apply it to wet hair on your scalp. The only difference here is that you want it to actually set in for about 1 to 2 minutes so that it actually gives time for the product to work and to penetrate. So it's first going to start by removing any of that waxy residue, plumping up the follicles with that wheat protein, and lastly, giving it that protective shield. What I love about the Hydra Lift shampoo is how quickly it will form a luxurious lather. So for best results, it's only recommended to be used 2 to 3 times a week. So you really don't need to use it every day.
All right, so anyone watching who's interested in Hydra Lift, how can they do that?
Absolutely. They're going to head over to Purons.com, shop Hydra Lift, and for a limited time, your viewers are going to get 35% off their order by entering discount code EARLY at the checkout page. And if your audience loves that Purons cares about the ingredients they use in the Hydra Lift shampoo, you are going to love Purons. They actually have really great skincare products as well.
There you go. So, Laura, thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate it.
Yeah,
sounds like
absolutely.
A great product and a great company. Thank you.
Oh my gosh, it's amazing. You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
All right, Purons.com. Discount code is EARLY. You'll save 35% off Hydra Lift plus all the skincare products. So go take a look at that. You'll appreciate it when you do. All right, let's shift back to some other headlines today. Mayor Mamdani seems to have some problems in New York City with the budget there. You know, the budget of New York City is bigger than the state of Florida. Pretty remarkable, isn't it? Billions and billions of dollars to God only knows what. But now Mamdani is demanding a bailout for the city of New York from the taxpayers of the entire state, probably the federal government too. You know why? Because socialism doesn't work. But here's what he had to say. Listen in.
New York City faces a budget crisis of a historic magnitude. We inherited a deficit larger than any since the Great Recession. Years of mismanagement and chronic underbudgeting, alongside a structural imbalance between what New York City sends to the state and what we receive in return, have taken a toll. We cannot close this deficit with savings alone. We need new revenue, and we need a structural reset in our relationship with the state. That is the only way to meet our legal obligation to pass a balanced budget, and to do so without imposing a financial burden onto the backs of working people. I'm glad to partner with Speaker Menon as we call upon Albany and deliver a balanced budget. Together, we are extending the executive budget deadline from this coming Friday until May 12th, because a crisis of this scale cannot be solved without state action. I want to be clear. We are not simply asking others to act. New York City is doing our part. We are committed to governing with the fiscal responsibility this moment demands. Speaker Menon and I have already identified meaningful savings, and we will continue that work carefully, deliberately, and without cutting the services that New Yorkers rely on. But we cannot do it alone. That is why we are standing together this morning, to underscore what is at stake and to call on Albany to deliver additional revenue.
Let me translate for you. He's going to try to hold the entire state of New York hostage for the terrible governance of the city of New York. Oh, and here's another part of it. Hang on to your wallets. If you're worth more than 50 cents and you live in New York, you're about to get hammered. This whole idea, we're only going to tax the rich. Lies, 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 lies. They're going to tax everybody several times over. Oh, and how about those free buses and free daycare? How's that working out? Oh, yeah, that didn't happen. Oh, it did for those that work for the city. Government employees get free daycare in some places, selected places. And they're spending about $60,000 a year for the daycare that on average in the city of New York costs about $22,500. So they're paying roughly 3 times the amount to have free daycare for government workers. Another brilliant plan for a city that's obviously broke. Yeah, this is how it works. Let me end on a nice note here. I want to go to Bite 8, Anthony. Because King Charles came, spoke to a joint session of Congress. He had something important to say, I think, when it comes to Christianity and the Western world. Listen to this.
And, Mr. Speaker, for many here, and for myself, the Christian faith is a firm anchor and daily inspiration that guides us, not only personally,
a standing ovation for the foundational principles of this country and for Western civilization. Kind of a nice note to finish this segment on, isn't it? It's good stuff. You're watching Daybreak. I'll be right back. The Red Pill Express rolling out of the station. Good to have you on board. Nice to see you today here on Daybreak. All right, so look, 3 assassination attempts, less than 2 years. And you would think the Democrats would step up and say, look, this has to stop. But instead, they're doing exactly what I said they would do, and you knew they would do. They blamed the president. They blamed the people getting shot at. They blamed Charlie Kirk for getting killed in Utah last September. They blamed Donald Trump for being the target of assassins over and over again. Yes, Democrats like Dan Goldman, congressman, continue to blame the president. Listen.
The biggest problem is online radicalization and social media. What I see in my feed, for example, is so much worse than anything you hear publicly said by anybody. And what we are seeing is the absolute radicalization online of so many people
by you.
that it is incredibly dangerous. And I do think that we need to rein that in with our social media companies so that that kind of rhetoric is just not promoted on the social media sites. It's not amplified.
So why do you promote it?
And therefore, the radicalization can be reduced.
Isn't it interesting? Dan's a victim, you see. He has bad stuff in his feed. He's a victim. Please. Can I get an air sickness bag? Rokana actually defending Hassan Piker. I mean, the depth of the depravity is nearly endless. Hassan Piker is the guy out there on campaign stops with Democrats who says, look, he's anti-Semitic, he's anti-American, he's anti-democracy, he is everything that I'm not. And probably you too. And Rokana actually defended him for his hateful comments about America and Jews and everything else. Listen.
But millions of people follow Hassan Piker. Why? Because he's speaking about some of the frustrations. He's speaking about the fact that people don't have health care in America. Well, there are a lot of people on the podcast world, et cetera, who say things that are outrageous or sensationalist, and I push back when you do that. But we have to understand the anger in this country of people who feel they can't buy a house, they can't afford gas, they can't have health care, they're upset at the system. It's one of the reasons Trump won twice, and we have to engage while condemning the violence. But if you look at, I never engage in approving of violence, approving of the incitement of violence, and I'll condemn it when I hear it.
Nice way to sidestep it, Ro. Hassan Piker promotes violence. Pretty easy thing. You say, I condemn Hassan Piker. It's pretty easy, Ro. I condemn Hassan Piker. Well, I saved the worst for last. Anthony, I hope you clean this up because this would make the monitors blow up. But I couldn't help but play this one for you because James Carville, he used to be interesting to me. He was a guy who was a pundit who had very interesting takes, and he had a pretty good view around political corners. But now he's gone insane. He literally has gone insane. And I don't have to tell you that. He'll tell you himself. Good luck. Here it is.
Look, you fat Trump, if you listen to this, you listen good, because what I'm getting ready to say is what a lot of people in this country speak for, who I speak for. And I speak for a lot of people. You hear me, you fat soul? This is what we believe. You're right. I got Trump derangement syndrome. I hate the mother. And you know what? I don't want to get rid of it. I don't want to get better. I want to get worse. I want to hate him more. I pray to God in heaven, God reign the righteous reign of Trump derangement syndrome. Pray for me, Lord. I'm your vessel on this earth. Pray for the people that listen to this. We want more. We want to hate the son of a so much that we can't see straight.
Well, James, do check your meds, please. This is a guy who was one of the key advisors to presidents, Democrats, progressives. He seems nice. I mean, if you had any question about whether or not Trump derangement syndrome is a serious mental issue and a serious mental illness, I don't think you have any questions now, do you? That's why I play these things for you, so you can see how ugly it is in person. All right, shifting gears. What if the biggest threat to the next generation isn't what you think? This coming Monday of Forgotten America, the podcast, Ivy and I sit down with Dr. Leonard Sachs. He's a physician, a psychologist, a best-selling author. And we're going to unpack a growing crisis hiding in plain sight, from rising anxiety in boys to boys quietly checking out in real life, and anxiety in girls to a world where smartphones may be shaping your kids more than the parents. Dr. Sachs argues we're not just seeing change, we're seeing the collapse of parenting in this country itself. So what happened? When did parents stop being in charge? And are we raising kids who are smart on paper but struggling where it really counts? The conversation is going to hit closer to home than you might expect. Look up Steve Greer on YouTube and you can find it. Here's a preview for you. Listen.
You know, boys want to be men, but I find many men today who want to be boys. Many men who are asking their 10-year-old sons to teach them to play video games. Don't do that. That's pathetic. Find something that you know how to do. So I have always known how to sail. I learned how to sail at National Music Camp up in Interlochen, Michigan. And I've always enjoyed sailing. And I've taught my daughter to sail. And so I don't own a sailboat, but you can rent one very cheap at the state park nearby, Marsh Creek. And we go sailing and we have a great time. Last time we capsized. They should never have let us go out. The winds were very high, and we literally went flying on our catamaran. But Sarah said it was the best time she ever had. So find something you know how to do and teach it to your kid, and do that with your kid. And you can start very young, hiking in the woods, whatever you love to do, you teach that to your kid and you do those things with your kid. That's the foundation of joy together with your kids.
That's parenting. It is a great interview. Go to YouTube right now. Be a subscriber for free. You can click the QR code on the screen, too, with your smart device, if you'd like. It comes out Monday, 9 a.m. What happened to parents in America? You're going to want to hear this one. I guarantee it. All right, time to check in on sports with Brock Palmbush.
With a look at sports, I'm Brock Palmbush. In the NBA playoffs last night, there were 3 Game 5s in round 1. Philadelphia won at Boston 113-97. Celtics still up 3-2. New York thrashed Atlanta 126-97. Knicks up 3-2. And San Antonio finished off Portland 114-95. Spurs win the series 4-1. In the NHL, 3 Game 5s in round 1 as well. Boston beat Buffalo in overtime to stay alive. Sabres still up 3-2. Minnesota won at Dallas 4-2. Wild up 3-2. And Edmonton silenced Anaheim 4-1. Ducks still lead the series 3-2. In Major League Baseball, a full schedule. American League winners included Tampa Bay, the Chicago White Sox, and Seattle. National League winners included Atlanta, Miami, and Milwaukee. Also in baseball, the Philadelphia Phillies fired manager Rob Thompson. Don Mattingly takes over on an interim basis. That's a look at sports. Back to you, Steve.
All right, thank you, Brock. Well, speaking of sports a little bit, former Minnesota Vikings captain and Minnesota Golden Gophers football star Jack Brewer. He's standing with law enforcement in Minneapolis. He's tired of it. Here's part of what he said. Americans should celebrate today. Finally, we have an FBI that is actually sticking up for the poor in this country and stopping this corruption that's happening in Minneapolis and surrounding areas, where they're literally robbing the orphan, the widow, and those in poverty. We need more common sense voices of high-profile individuals like Jack Brewer. Federal authorities have now raided more than 20 locations, including child care facilities in Minneapolis. It happened yesterday, part of the sweeping fraud investigation. It's ongoing. And remember, in Congress, they just passed a bill that would take migrants and toss them out of the country, those that commit fraud against you, the taxpayer. And 186 Democrats voted against it this week. 186. Said, no. You can steal from the taxpayer. It's all good. Unbelievable. But Jack Brewer, I tip my hat to him today. I tip my hat to him. Stealing from the widow, the orphan, the poor. It's exactly what's happening. And we have to say no more. Accountability in different places. That's all good news. All right, for those of you on Real America's Voice, Sunrise up next. For the rest of you on streaming and the MTN networks, we continue with hour number 3 of Daybreak after this.
America's awake, and we're just getting started. The headlines that matter, the stories they won't tell you, and the voices fighting to be heard. This is your country, your morning, your daybreak with Steve and Ivy Gruber. A new hour starts right now.
All right, and welcome to it as we jump into another big hour here of the program. Glad you are on board. Fighting for you for the foxhole of freedom. We do it every single day to defend this country and put America first. Three big things this hour. Number one, King Charles continues his state visit after addressing a joint session of Congress yesterday. We'll tell you about that. Number two, in Michigan, Dana Nessel, the Attorney General, siding with the Democrats to protect aid and money for households of illegal aliens. Nice. And number three, I want to dig a little bit deeper into the whole James Comey indictment. We've been talking about it this morning. It comes with an arrest warrant this time. I'm not sure it's the right case. I'm going to just be straight up about that. He was indicted for a post on Instagram where seashells have been arranged on the sand, 8647, which obviously means get rid of President Trump. But does it mean kill him? Is it truly a threat? That's the question. He's facing 20 years in prison after being indicted by a North Carolina grand jury. Here's Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche.
Good afternoon. Today, a grand jury sitting in the Eastern District of North Carolina returned an indictment against James Comey on 2 counts. The first count is that on or about May 15th of last year, he knowingly and willfully making a threat to take the life of and to inflict bodily harm upon the President of the United States. Count 2, same day, May 15th, 2025, that the defendant, James Comey, knowingly and willfully transmitting in interstate commerce a communication that contained a threat to kill the President of the United States. Both of these counts carry a maximum term of imprisonment of 10 years.
So that's a total of 20 years. 20 years for an Instagram post. And this is where I'm just not seeing it. I'm sorry. Blanche also pointed out this is not an infringement on free speech. Here's how he explained it.
That shows that Mr. Comey intended for President Trump to be harmed. And then secondarily, for critics who say, where does free speech end and an actual threat of violence begin?
I don't know what critics say that, especially today, but it's not a very difficult line to look at, and it's not, in my mind, a difficult line for one to cross over one way or the other. We cannot, you are not allowed to threaten the President of the United States of America. That's not my decision. That's Congress's decision in a statute that they passed that we charge multiple times a year. And so whether there is a defense, as you just described, maybe there is, but the government will have evidence. I am not going to talk about the evidence that we have. That's unfair to him. It's unfair to the prosecutors, but it's enough to say that the grand jury returned an indictment. I'm just
Yeah, there you have that. And again, I remain unconvinced. How about you? Are you there with that? He said this is not even a close call. One more from Blanche.
So I think it's fair to say that threatening the life of anybody is dangerous and potentially a crime. Threatening the life of the President of the United States will never be tolerated by the Department of Justice. Over the past year, this department has charged dozens of cases involving threats against all sorts of individuals. We take these seriously, every single one of them. For example, just today in the Northern District of Florida, there was a guilty plea from an individual who threatened multiple political leaders, including President Trump. In the Eastern District of North Carolina, where this case was indicted earlier today, there are multiple threats cases very similar to this one, including one where the defendant pled guilty recently to threatening former President Biden, another one that's scheduled to go to trial this summer, another one indicted, an individual was indicted for threatening Tom Homan. I say that to say that while this case is unique and this indictment stands out because of the name of the defendant, his alleged conduct is the same kind of conduct that we will never tolerate, and that we will always investigate and regularly prosecute.
Again, I'm just not there. I'm not there, right? He put a post on Instagram. It's a picture. And I believe in free speech, and I believe that if I said 86-46 when Joe Biden was in office, I didn't, but if I had posted that as a picture on Facebook or Instagram or wherever, I don't think that the FBI is going to be knocking on my door. At least I would hope not. I don't believe that James Comey had an active plot to go attack the president. I'm sorry, I don't. So I'd like to know what you think about that. Oh, by the way, another possible target of the DOJ is another disgraced member of the left-wing establishment. And these are people that I think should be held accountable. James Comey should be held accountable for things like trying to undermine President Trump, creating the entirely bogus Russian hoax. John Brennan and James Clapper should be held to the same standard. And by the way, here is John Brennan talking about this. Listen.
The reality is there is a similar zeal to punish you for doing more than exercising your First Amendment rights, for doing your job as the then director of the CIA. What is it like to sort of watch this news come across it's not a wire anymore, but come across our devices?
Well, Nicole, an overused term is appalling. I find it appalling. Jim Comey served as a U.S. attorney and the Deputy Attorney General for President George W. Bush. He served as the Director of FBI for President Barack Obama. It is absurd to think that Jim Comey would be advocating violence against anyone, much less a President of the United States. I served with Jim Comey during the last years of the Obama administration. He is somebody who I think served his country with integrity, with professionalism, and with determination to make sure that the rule of law was going to be followed. And so, as you pointed out, I think there has been a litany of these efforts over the past number of years, past year and a half by Donald Trump, to exact revenge against some of his perceived political adversaries.
So look, I don't buy John Brennan's deal here, weaponizing of the Department of Justice and the intel community. That was all done against Donald Trump. That argument is hollow, all right, from John Brennan especially. But again, I'm still concerned about this indictment of James Comey as being flimsy or even pointless. If you're going to go get somebody, go get them for something that's real, not a picture on Instagram. This is not the United Kingdom. I have real problems with this. And we'll see how it ends up. But I'm not a believer. If you're going to hold people accountable, do it the right way. All right? That's what I think. Hold them accountable the right way. I'm going to take a break and be back. When we come back, we've got Ron Rademacher here who's going to, bring me some laughs. He's going to bring joy to me today. That's his job. And I expect him to deliver joy to me today. You got it, Ron? You listening? All right, good. Too much coffee? Not enough? I don't know. Back after this. All right, my next guest has been roaming the back roads of Michigan for more years than I've been alive. That's how old he is. All right, I'm kidding. He's not that old. He's about my age. Ron Rademacher, welcome back to the Big Shoe.
Actually, that is probably true. I've got underwear older than you. I mean, socks older than you, Steve.
Tighty whities, there it is. The baggy kind. That's it. It's the end of the segment, Anthony. Cut him off.
Yeah, we try to keep it classy here. So yeah, the back roads are great right now, although we're getting a soaker today. I don't know how it is with you guys, but up north here, it's raining.
Yeah. All right. So and the rain is good, and the cool weather is good, because that keeps the mushrooms in the refrigerator, which we like, Morel mushrooms. And I just have to confess, Ron, we killed it. We killed it on Saturday over the weekend.
And I'm betting this coming weekend you'll probably do just as well, because it's supposed to get warmed up towards Saturday and Sunday. And one warm night, man, those babies will spring right back up.
Yeah. Professor Pat, the mushroom man, took us out on his super secret hot spots on Saturday. Took me and Ivy, a couple of the boys, teenagers, and they were like, well, it might be kind of... Dude, they had a ball. All of a sudden, they're like, I got a bigger one. You missed one. You stepped over one. Look, I got another one. Look at all. There's 12 here. And it was remarkable. We probably got 5 pounds in a couple of hours. It was a great hour. The kids loved it. And you know what they weren't doing? Playing on their phones. Thank God.
Put the phone away.
Yeah, it was remarkable.
We've done that a couple of times with homeschool groups, the kids, and they're amazed at how much fun they're having once they're out there. The phones are gone, and you can't believe how much fun they start to have. And then, of course, you throw in a little bit of tree identification and this and that, and how to stay out of the poison ivy, and they'll remember it forever, and they'll want to go again.
That's the thing. They do want to go again. And then for the next several days, hey, do we have anything else we can cook the mushrooms with? Hey, can we have some more mushrooms? I mean, because we got sacks. I mean, it's remarkable. Anyhow, I was really, and Professor Pat, he is the master. He's always experimenting. How do we grow more next year? I don't know, Pat. Just get up in your property, because they just every year it's the same. You walk up his driveway and you're like, where do they all come from? I mean, there's not even trees. It's out across grassy. There's sand, and it's like, where do they come from? I don't know. It's whatever.
We're on our way over, so just keep that crock pot going. Throw those morels in there.
Yeah.
So good feast. Can't wait.
Love it. Anyhow, okay, that's all I got. But Cadillac, they're going to explain how it's done, right?
Cadillac, they're going to explain how it's done at the Carl T. Johnson Hunting and Fishing Center. They got the Morel mushroom. Actually, it's a Michigan mushroom clinic. So I always tell people, make sure you know them before you go. I mean, morels are pretty hard to mistake unless you get those beef steaks. But other mushrooms, you can make mistakes, and wild mushrooms will make you sick, baby.
It's a fair point you make. My boy, he pointed out 2 false morels. Picked them up and showed his buddy, this is what you're not supposed to pick, and here's the difference. This has a cap. These are single, one-piece mushrooms. It was. Love to see my kid educating another kid, because he's been taught right, not by me specifically, but with me in part. And it's just a great outing. And you know who else is a great teacher? Ivy's a great teacher. Anyhow, I digress.
Well, we've been on this for a bit, but I'll just say those clinics are well worth it. They don't take very long, a couple of hours. And when you walk out, you are competent to identify the 4 or 5 most common mushrooms in Michigan that are edible, but you're able to discern the ones that are not. And it's not that hard. It's very simple, and it'll make your outing that much more fun if you're not hugging the porcelain all night.
Yeah, or in the ER, right.
And the ER is very possible, yeah.
Yeah, there you go. All right.
Yeah, there's no cure for mushroom poisoning. You will either die or get better, but either way, you will regret not taking a class. So get it done.
There you go. All right.
Yeah, so let's talk about a couple of other things that are not mushroom. There are a couple of really great things coming up this week. One of them that I don't want to get away from is the Lantern Glow Festival at the John Ball Zoo Park. I don't know if you've ever been to this Lantern Festival they have there, but it is one of the most beautiful, colorful displays you're going to find anywhere in Michigan. You got about a half-mile walk. You go around where the animals are, and every few feet are these fantastic displays of paper and silk lanterns all lit up. I mean, just Do a quick search. You'll be amazed how jaw-droppingly beautiful that is. That begins this weekend and goes through June 14th. A great outing. Everybody will like it. There are no Morels left there. Of course, we cleaned them out a little while ago, but that's a great time. And another really excellent display is back at Meyer Gardens, and that's the David Chihuly display. And David Chihuly was a glass blowing artist who almost single-handedly resurrected an art form that had pretty much died. And when you see the work that this man did, completely different from anything you're expecting, and again, just absolutely beautiful. So that's a couple of big ones to stop and see on your way to the Tulip Festival in Holland.
There you go.
So,
love the Tulip. In Mesick, speaking of mushrooms, a couple of different places around Michigan claim to be the mushroom capital. Mesick being one of them, but something else, something special.
Yes. Yeah, they're having the blessing of the Jeeps. I don't know if you have anybody in your family who owns Jeeps, but we do, and they fill them with those little ducks or whatever they are on their dash. And if you have a Jeep, you can come out to a parking lot where your car's been sitting, and there'll be new ducks or little chicks, sitting on they leave them all over. So they're blessing the Jeeps up there in Mesick. And it's not just a blessing, which is over at like 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning. Then you get to go and do the runs through the woods in your Jeep, mud bog. These people love nothing better than getting in the mud.
That's right. Yeah, and if you like getting in the mud.
And then, of course, yes, Mesick claims to be the Morel mushroom capital of the world. I found a few up around there. Of course, you're up by the northern compound. You've got Tony and the folks up there.
All my mushrooms were in Jackson County, for those of you keeping score at home. Anyhow, for those of you keeping score at home, it's MichiganBackroads.com, MichiganBackroads.com. Ron's got a new book for you as well. You can find that at MichiganBackroads.com and have your festival, your mushrooms, your event highlighted right there at MichiganBackroads.com. Ron, thank you.
Steve, and do check, folks. Look at the website. We want you to buy local. The books are in shops all over the state. I got them alphabetically listed by town. So support your local entrepreneurs and small businesses, please.
Well, I look at everything that's going on, and yeah, we did. We had just an incredible time. We did. We had an incredible time, and every year you think, well, this can be the best year. But back in March when there was snow on the ground, quite a bit of it, I'm thinking, man, we're only 30 days from getting out in the woods, and what a great experience. Do this with the kids. You don't just sit there. Let them stare at their phones all the time. They're going to do that some. Look, it's the generation we're in. But to get those kids out, it was the most, and it put smiles on all of our faces. There was 3 adults and 2 teenagers, both 14, right? And to listen to them hooting and hollering and, oh, you missed one, I got a bigger one. It was just a really special deal. And so Pat is a guy that I've known for, 30 years. And Ivy's got to know him, just a great guy. And he is the professor in the woods. Look at this. Here's how this works. Find this. And it's just fun. And there's just something really beneficial about connecting without a device in your hand. There really is. We take a device along in case we need pictures. And we did. We got a few pictures because you need that. But other than that, just put it away. Enjoy the woods. And the weather now is getting so nice. Our entire compound is filled with flowering trees. It's spectacular night. White flowers. these bright red trees, these bright purple trees, chartreuse maybe, I don't know what you call it. It's just a really great time of the year, and you don't have to just let it slip away. In fact, I would suggest, if you can, take your shoes off and go walk around the yard barefoot. What a wonderful thing to do.
But watch for ticks.
Buzzkill. Thanks a lot, Anthony, bringing everybody down. I did find a single tick on myself. Dog tick, didn't matter. It's not a Lyme disease tick. It was a dog tick a couple days ago. Ivy dislikes not a lot in this world. She dislikes ticks a lot. So whenever there's ticks around, she gets a little heebie-jeebie about that, which is fine. Yeah, watch for ticks. You can put on some anti-tick spray, I suppose, if you're so inclined. But, yeah, be careful about that. Let's see. What do I have next? Let me see here, Anthony. What do I have next?
Mike Cox.
Mike Cox. Yeah, running for governor. I'll see him this Saturday. I'm hosting a governor's debate coming Saturday. Mike Cox, straight ahead on Daybreak. All right. The race for governor is hot and heavy right now. As I told you, I'll be hosting a debate for the Republican candidates coming up on Saturday. And one of the folks that'll be there, Mike Cox, former Attorney General, 21-year prosecutor candidate for the Republican nomination to be governor. Mike, good morning.
Steve, how you doing, sir?
I'm
Looking forward
doing
to
well.
seeing you on Saturday.
Yes, you will. I think there'll be 4 people up there. And one of the things that has got to be discussed, and it's top of mind to me, for 15 years on this program, I have called out the Southern Poverty Law Center for being a complete fraud that defames people and libels people and smears people, good people. And now, after they have been exposed and been the focus of an investigation by the Department of Justice for not only funding radical groups, but then trying to profit from those radical groups, most clearly Charlottesville, Virginia. They paid for that to happen and then fundraised on that. And now we know that your colleague across the aisle, if you will, Jocelyn Benson, who's running for the Democratic nomination, worked there. She was there during the heyday years of where they were smearing people the most. What do you say about that?
You know, what can you say? Shocked but not surprised. You know, just more of the same, of the progressive BS that we get each and every day. And Steve, you hit upon it. So, you know, think about this. Any of your viewers, it's kind of like the Humane Society, you know, going out and paying some dudes off the street to go beat up dogs and cats, and then featuring those dogs and cats in the commercials to pull on our heartstrings to give them money. It's really no different than that. I mean, literally, they help create events that, as you said, they fundraise off. And when we talk about fundraising, we're talking about $129 million in 2025. And so, I mean, it was, quite frankly, Steve, it was a great business model, right? You pay these guys $500,000 a year, you know, the head of the KKK, the head of the American Nazi Party, to go out and you know, create havoc and peaceful protests, and then you blame it on the right. And at the same time, as I said, you know, they're paying these guys, you know, $500,000, $1 million a year to start some stuff. And I was about to say that word. You know, they're fundraising $130 million a year, and then they take that $130 million a year and they go out and they call Turning Point a hate group, right? They call Focus on the Family a hate group. You know, they call groups that are doing studies, real studies on the impact of illegal immigration in America. They call them hate groups. I mean, it is, you know, it's a progressive encyclopedia in terms of, you know, raising money under false pretenses, which, by the way, is a crime, and is something a Consumer Protection Division, if we had a real attorney general, would investigate.
Well, let me ask you this: as a prosecutor, right? Isn't this something that would fall under the RICO statutes? Isn't this, if you're doing this and you're setting up a scenario that's false, a false flag like Charlottesville, Virginia, and creating this, or paying for the Ku Klux Klan or whomever else, a Patriot Front and all these other fraudulent organizations, and then you profit off from that, is that not organized crime?
100%. It is for each ad, each appeal where they cite Charlottesville or they cite the American Nazi Party to raise money. Each one of those acts are called predicate acts. You only need 2, are enough to establish a racketeering charge. In state law, that's a 20-year offense. And so God bless the Department of Justice, you know, for turning over this rock and seeing all the snakes come slithering out, because that's what it is. And by the way, right, this Secretary of State who writes his book, you know, and
she brags about her work there.
Brags about it. And you know, I could see some misguided 20-year-olds going and thinking they're doing harm. But when she got or doing something right. But when she got to the board, when did this start, Steve? Let's look at when this started. It started right when she got on the board.
Something else a prosecutor does, lays out a timeline. Let's just check the dates. Bam, 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 bam. RICO statute.
2014, she gets on the board. 2014, the Department of Justice tells us they start this payola, right? Yeah. Or that's the earliest they know. But so what a coincidence, right? And as you know, as my dad used to say, son, there's no coincidence in the world. Yeah. That's when you think there's a coincidence, there's something going on there.
All right, Mike, let's talk about this. It looks pretty certain, obviously, that it's going to be a 3-way race on the general election for governor. Mike Duggan, the former mayor, we'll assume Jocelyn Benson. But how do you rise to the top of the Republican field to be the Republican candidate in that three-way race. I think that there is Whitmer fatigue in this state.
Right.
You know, as I bounce down the road, knocking my fillings loose, I think, man, aren't we going to fix the damn road someday? I think there's Whitmer fatigue, and so I think that the Republican nominee is the odds-on favorite to win the seat in Lansing going into the general election.
Right.
That's what the math tells me. How do you get there?
Well, last week was draft week, and if you're a football fan, you're watching ESPN. Everyone's talking about, well, this team has cap space, right? So that they can go out and they get the best stars. And right now, I have cap space. That means I haven't spent a dime in relative terms. So my brother Perry Johnson spent 15 to 20 million on advertising. He's at 21% according to the Wood TV poll. John James has had 120 million spent on him in prior races, and $1.5 million to $2 million so far this race. According to Wood TV, he's right behind Perry, and just 10 points back from both of them is Mike Cox, and I've spent $400,000. So, Steve, and I think you covered at the beginning of the year, I came into the new year with the most money on hand. I had twice what John James did. I had over $4 million on hand. He had $2 million. I had more than Benson. I had more than Duggan. And so I'm holding my fire. It's a couple weeks ago, we celebrated Bunker Hill and Lexington.
Sure. So the question then is, Mike, when do you strike that match? When do you light that fuse? When do you spend that money? When do you go into the spending mode? And because look, you can't wait too long, because Go ahead.
No, I understand. And we have a plan, and we're executing it. Every day, you plan the work, then you work the plan, and that's the reality, Steve. So in May, before Memorial Day, you'll see us up everywhere, and that's when voters really start to pay attention once they get through the Memorial holiday weekend, and they start to focus on, oh yeah, there's an August primary. Right now, folks are scratching their head about 3 months away, and 3.5 months away in August seems like a long way. And I tell people, well, they say, when are you going to start spending your money? I say, well, do you remember there was a President Giuliani, a President Ben Carson, a President Rick Perry, President Ted Cruz?
No.
There was a time all of them looked like they were going to be president.
Yeah.
But they peaked too early, and they spent their money too early.
Same thing with basketball and March Madness. You peak too early, you don't win the championship. You got to peak at the right time.
100%.
Real quickly. Yeah, where do people find you, Mike?
Okay, they can go to MikeCox2026.com to sign up and join with us. And we're having a couple hundred people come out supporting us for the Oakland GOP debate, the warm-up for your debate this weekend, Steve. But they can find me on X at Mike_Cox, COX.
All right.
Pretty easy.
Mike Cox, good talking to you. I will see you on Saturday. Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. I appreciate it.
All right, there you have it. That is the warm-up to the UP debate. Looking forward to it. I'll take a break and be back with the one and only Ivy, and everybody sang. All right, coming up to the back stretch down the straightaway, headed for the checkered flag. And look, there's a nice, beautiful woman smiling right there, race side. Look, no, she's not smiling. She's hiding.
I'm sorry, Steve. I'm channeling my inner Governor Whitmer there.
Very nice. Well done.
Yes. Good morning.
Good morning.
Happy to be here. How are you doing today, Steve?
Doing good. I slept really well. And as you know, I had some trouble last week, man. I was suffering. But this week, it's on. It's great.
Good.
Weather's getting better. Love it.
Allergies are killing me, but
Yeah,
other than that, I'm doing great.
Yeah, you've had some allergy issues. I knew that.
So I saw a really heroic video of, the kids are going to school. They're on the school bus. All of a sudden, the bus driver is having a medical episode.
Oh, boy.
And 5 Hancock middle school students jumped into action after their school bus driver passed out behind the wheel. You can see them there in the video. They're working together. One is pushing the brakes. One is steering the steering wheel, getting the bus off the road to keep everybody safe. And these kids didn't seem to really panic. They worked together. They stepped up, and they had courage and got everybody to a safe place. And I believe also called 911 to get.
And the driver?
The driver is doing fine. Just, I think it wasn't specific about what occurred with her, just that she had a medical emergency. It was a medical episode.
Unfortunately, she probably doesn't have a job anymore. That's too bad. Probably can't drive the school bus.
Right. Well, I mean, these things happen sometimes.
They do.
It's not like you can control them, but I just think it's great that middle school students,
Yeah, nicely done.
early teenagers stepped up to do the right thing.
Another
interesting emergency.
That's encouraging, but go ahead.
I don't know if you saw this, but a routine Delta flight from Atlanta to Portland turned into a medical emergency when a pregnant passenger went into labor mid-flight. About 30 minutes before landing, and the crew declared the emergency, and luckily a doctor and 2 nurses were on board and helped deliver the baby during flight. And the baby and the mother were just fine. And when they landed and the medical personnel arrived, the EMTs, to take her away to the hospital. But man, can you believe that? It's like all of a sudden, I'm gonna deliver my baby now.
Now, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's interesting. But everybody's good.
Everybody's good. Everyone's healthy. Delivered just fine.
Man, just coming with all the happy stories today. I like it.
Yeah, I think it's good. It's good to talk about some positive things every once in a while.
It is. We talk about so many heavy things here with everything going on in the world. No, I think that's good. People need that.
Absolutely, 100% agree. On a not so positive story, though.
No, boy, sorry, I set you up for failure.
The U.S. Ag Secretary Brooke Rollins has uncovered that thousands of potentially ineligible recipients, 14,000 vehicles have been registered to people who drive luxury brand cars, Lexus, Tesla, BMW, and even a few Lamborghinis and Ferraris. They have SNAP benefits.
Oh, come on.
It's like, okay, why would you take away money from people who need it if you can afford to drive a luxury vehicle?
Well, here's the thing. Part of the game in Minneapolis, for example, is that they never actually get married, right? They'll live together.
So couples don't get married.
And therefore, my income's only this, so I get benefits, and his income's only this, so I get benefits. Because they never get married, and so they never combine their resources, and so therefore they qualify for government benefits to fleece you and I and people that truly need the help. And that's appalling what you just said. They're driving Ferraris and getting SNAP. Do they pull up to the food bank in their Ferrari?
So this was in one state, and she didn't name the state, but thousands of SNAP recipients were linked to luxury vehicles. 14,000 vehicles received SNAP benefits.
Now, some of those vehicles, what else is on the list? I think I might have seen this at a glance. So there were Teslas and Porsche.
Lexus and a few Lamborghinis and Ferraris. But
it's the Ferrari that sticks out because, look, you could have an old Porsche potentially, because they made an SUV. I think they still do, right? And you can have an old SUV. That's
even
possible.
If you can afford that kind of car, it's...
you would think.
You're taking advantage... This just goes back to more fraud. You're taking advantage of a program that really is people need it. There
Yeah,
are
it's there to
families
help
that
people.
need it. I mean, when I grew up, we were on food stamps. They were called food stamps then.
Yeah.
And if we didn't have those, we would have not eaten. And
Right.
so as growing up, like it kind of comes with a bit of embarrassment, I think, too, as,
It
and I
used
think
to.
that's why they give you a card now, because
Yeah.
there was a little bit of a stigma associated with,
Sure
oh my
there
gosh,
was.
they have food stamps, And I remember feeling that as a kid. But I was super grateful because I knew, I was just probably, I don't know, 7
10 or
or
12
8.
years old, yeah.
Yeah, or even younger than
Yeah.
that. That if I didn't have these, I wouldn't be able to, our family would not be able to eat. And so it gets very aggravating to me, having experienced that, when you have people that don't need it, and then they're taking
Well,
away
the
from
other
people
thing-
that do.
The other thing you see these people that have SNAP benefits, but they have enormous budgets for SNAP, and they're going through and they're packing they got the Doritos, and they've got the Mountain Dew, and they've got all this stuff stacked in their
I think
cart.
I've seen some
And there's
TikTok
people in
videos like
line
that.
with them that
Yeah.
cannot afford it. Would you?
Sorry, I didn't mean to speak over you there. It was just, I was saying, I think I've seen some TikTok videos.
Exactly.
Of, some people who are like, look at all the things that I've got from my food stamps or from my SNAP benefits. And it's, 2 carts full of stuff, and a lot of it completely unhealthy and terrible for you. But it just, I don't know.
Meanwhile, there's
I don't
people in
understand.
line that can barely afford to eat. That's my
Exactly.
point.
Exactly.
The system is out of kilter too often.
Well, I mean, I wonder these days, because I'm not familiar with the process, how the state confirms that you actually need these benefits.
Don't know.
Look,
I have no problem helping those that cannot help themselves.
Absolutely.
But those that are helping themselves to benefits that they should not have should be arrested. It shouldn't just be a fine or you lose your benefits. No, you should go to jail. You want free food? I've got 3 squares a day in the county jail for you. You want free food? We'll send you to jail. Anyhow, good stuff, Ivy. Really appreciate it. Love you.
I love you, Steve.
All right, so we'll take a last break today and give you some final thoughts right after this. All right, watching the price of oil today, it's interesting because consumer confidence continues to be high. It came in yesterday far higher than anticipated. So the American consumer still feels good about things. The price of oil has breached $100 today, which is, again, I believe that we're being taken advantage of. In fact, it's at $103.90. So we'll just call that $104 a barrel for oil. The United Arab Emirates are leaving OPEC. That nation is leaving OPEC. But some believe the prolonged problem with the Strait of Hormuz. Look, I haven't heard of a ship getting, seriously damaged by the Iranians, but the fear factor is there. We have mine-clearing Navy ships in there taking out any mines. I don't know that they found any. I don't know that I've seen a report of any mines being found, but yet Lloyd's of London and others will not insure these ships going through there. And the country getting hurt the worst is China, I believe. Look, their price of gasoline went past $5 a gallon 6 weeks ago. I don't think it's gotten appreciably better since then. But how far does this go? The average price of gasoline in America has gone from $4.04 last week to $4.22 today. So it's up 18 cents, right? That begins to impact people. But the question I ask, is it better to have $4.50 gasoline or Iran with a nuclear weapon? I think the answer is easy. You pay the $4.50 a gallon, even if it stings, until we come out of this, and then the economy will roar. But the economy, like I said, consumer confidence continues to be high. The market continues to do very well. In fact, the market's sitting over 49,000 for the Dow. NASDAQ's at 24,006, and the S&P 500 remains in all-time record territory. So bear with me. We'll face this together. We'll see where it goes. Fight the good fight and keep the faith. God bless America. I'm Steve Gruber. This is Daybreak, and remember, only you can save America.